The crimes range from murder and targeted killings, kidnapping, abductions, blackmail, bribery, embezzlement of public funds in the billions, if not trillions of dollars, murder, and treason. So that's the short list of serious crimes that have been committed by this transnational criminal organization, and they are very much aware that this is being pursued. Because let's not forget, President Clinton back in the 1990s had Team Red. That was to do exactly what we're doing now after he got all this information from Project Starlight, which is the predecessor to the Disclosure Project that I was head of, and from people who I was working with back then. And it got stopped dead in its tracks. And most of the people involved were either killed or absorbed into this illegal transnational criminal organization, what I call the TNCO, that is this global operation running these covert programs, not just here, but abroad.
This whole subject, UFOs, ETs, that's not the big issue. It's the technology. It's a science and technology story. Because you're talking about bringing out science, technology, information that would alter the world forever in a very good way, but it would terminate $1,000 trillion worth of assets: corporate, oil, gas, coal, jet engines, rockets, car engines, all of it's obsolete. So for that, people are killed for a lot less than that.
It's a distinction without any significance, which is something our political leaders have yet to grasp, frankly, because this organization simply doesn't recognize the authority of any national government, including that of the United States and the president and the Congress. If they did, they would not be working in a criminal fashion outside the rule of law, which I've stated has been the case since 1993, when I first learned that the president and the CIA director were actively blocked from knowing about the subject. As soon as I knew that, it was the easiest thing in the world for me to connect those dots and go, well, here's the evidence that this is real and it's going on. My uncle had his whole career at Northrop Grumman. And yet, the president and the CIA director are being blocked. The only explanation for that. And of course, then I later found that key oversight committees and chairmen that I dealt with in the 90s, key people in the Pentagon, senior most people in military intelligence, like the director of the Defense Intelligence Agency, were being blocked from this information. I concluded by 1997 and wrote a memo to the government: this is a criminal organization, it's illegal, all their clearances are voided, all their security clearances are voided because they're criminal. We're going to bring out anything we can, including documents and testimony, and if we could, material, and it's not in violation of any national security laws. And listen, anyone who's out there who's a whistleblower, listen carefully. Every single person in the US government, legal, agrees with what I just said, from the top down. Everyone. That these programs are illegal, therefore you are not bound by your non-disclosure agreement, because that agreement is attached to a criminal, treasonous, unconstitutional program. End of discussion. And that was the assessment we made almost 30 years ago. So we have to bring clarity and evidence to this. But the problem is, and this is a very big thing I'm about to say, a very big announcement, and I don't do it lightly. There are people who are identified with the UFO subject who I have had confirmed directly in the last 2 or 3 weeks from a member of Congress and a key committee investigating this, that have deliberately gone up to these key members of Congress and apparently people at Aero and the Pentagon and other offices, stating that I, Dr. Stephen Greer, am a Russian espionage agent and a Mossad agent. This is false, but it's criminal. And so we've run this up the flagpole into law enforcement and attorneys, and the people, all of you listening will guess who they are, who have been saying this, are guilty of multiple federal criminal offenses which have been referred to the FBI and I am insisting be pursued and run to ground. What am I saying? I'm saying that the people who are going up to Capitol Hill and in the circles in the White House saying this have done so for the purpose of blocking the whistleblowers we have and the evidence we have from getting to the very people who have been tasked by the federal government to look into it. That is a major federal crime, each occurrence. So each time that has been said and done based on false statements of me being a Russian agent is a federal crime, and it's a major one. Let me give everyone a little history lesson. Back in the 50s, the CIA engaged Dr. Menzel at Harvard, a famous astronomer. And he engaged people who were amateur astronomers to throw pie pans up in the sky and take photos of them, claim they were flying saucers, and then come out and prove they weren't because it would discredit the whole field. Look, this tactic of what you just described, nothing new under the sun. And if you go through this briefing document, folks, please learn to read. I don't want to sound like your school teacher or professor, but people need to read, and every word of it, because it's been curated, and these cases are in there. So again, I'm not dealing with conspiracy theories and speculation. This is a tried and true tactic and strategy that's been used since the 50s for 70 years. Who's then protecting the earth from these psychopaths, this transnational criminal organization? My information is that it's unlikely we're going to go 2 more years without some catastrophic events happening unless we get not only asymmetric disclosure to prime the pump of official disclosure and get the bureaucrats and the government people, engaged fully. So, that's just part of it. But the other part of it is that people always misinterpret. I've made the point for decades. The false flag operations began in the late 50s and early 60s. What do I mean? Go look at what we have. And again, this whole case is also in here. It's the Norton Air Force Base, where the air show, where there were Brad Sorensen was there, and was the 1988, and there were 3 man-made UFOs in this hangar in a compartmented area for this air show at Norton Air Force Base in California, which has now been decommissioned and closed. But those were from the late 50s, early 60s, because the components inside were all from the Mercury era, right? Like the Mercury capsule. And those had been out in space and around, not interstellar, but around the solar system. And they were the older models, and they were wanting more money to build the newer ones. Now remember, this is 1988. Those were from the late 50s, early 60s. So there have been UFO events like the Tic Tac and these others, as well as abductions, as well as false flag operations that are made to look alien that aren't, that launched in the late 50s, early 60s. So the psychological warfare part of the false flag began in the 50s. That's what's key. And now it's grown apace to where the technologies we have are so advanced, they're way more advanced than that clunky alien reproduction vehicle from the early 60s. We're talking about objects that would be almost indistinguishable from an extraterrestrial vehicle. And the people I know who have been on these retrieval teams, multiple different people, don't know each other. They've said that. They say they're so good that you really would be hard-pressed to tell the difference between an alien one or extraterrestrial one or NHI one and a man-made one. Well, this is dangerous because if the people in our mainstream Department of Defense and mainstream CIA and mainstream political operations don't know this, they could easily mistake a man-made false flag operation as an alien or NHI attack. And in fact, that is the master plan that they've been working since 1953 and 1954 for 70 years. Now, one thing I was told back in the first year of the Bush administration in 2001, before 9/11, I was at a meeting at the University Club there down the street from the White House with a friend of President Bush, George W. Bush, and we were in there. Donald Rumsfeld was there having lunch that day and whatnot, and he said, "Look, here's the thing, Dr. Greer. No matter whether they're conservative, liberal, libertarian, when they get into the White House, they govern conservatively, as in, let's not rock the boat. Let's not disrupt the status quo." And that seems like a safe thing to do until you realize what the consequences are of doing nothing. And the problem is the analysis never gets to that level, because there are people who will go into the White House, into the Oval, or into the Situation Room or the PIOC, or into a skiff and say, look, if this comes out, it's going to cause all these effects. It's going to be too much to manage. Their weapon systems are a threat to private pilots. Their operations are a threat to geophysical stability. And the withholding of the technologies are a threat to world peace and to the biosphere, because we're still using 1800s fuel. I mean, you can go to Amazon Prime or Tubi and see The Lost Century, and you'll see this whole unpacking of 100 years of energy technologies that have been withheld viciously, up to and including murdering people, which would have saved the biosphere and eliminated poverty, which would have given us a stable and just social order in the world so that we wouldn't be in endless wars. So this is a part and parcel of the problem.